Hello there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and a new paper crafting video. Today we are playing with ephemera. It's all from the Serenade of Autumn kit or collection of products really from Spellbinders. They asked if I would want to play with this and share it with you, so I said yes after seeing how pretty all the things were. So these are the die cut printed elements. I like to call all of these things ephemera. And that's just what I've always called them. And so I decided to kind of find out what ephemera really is, because is it just a name that I've picked up along the way? But it kind of fits, and I thought you would be interested too. So here's the definition: things that exist or are used or enjoyed for only a short time. Collectible things like papers, letters, old boxes. So I thought that was a really fun concept, and I thought these could be those types of things that you cut out and collected like we used to, and then used to make a card. All right, so now we have some stickers that are 3D, these butterflies. They are gorgeous. They are connected in the center. The top layer is not adhesive, but the bottom layer is. So pretty. Then we also have chipboard elements that have adhesive on the back. There are 2 sheets of these. They have sentiments, they have images. They're just really cool. I love in Spellbinders kits, they always have the chipboard elements. I just like that sturdy, like raised up look. And then we have some gems, Serenade of Autumn gems. They have like flecks of gold foiling in them, or gold leafing. It's very cool. We have some gold printed vellum. So gorgeous. I am going to use 2 sheets of this. There's 3 different patterns and you get 2 sheets of each. They're 6 by 6 in size. Yummy. And then we have some 6 by 6 paper that is watercolor resist paper. So it's like it has an image embossed with clear powder on top of the paper, and then you can do a resist technique. I am going to use this one right here with the butterflies. So very cool. Again, 2 sheets each of 3 patterns, and then there's a stencil, the layered snow sunflower stencil. There's also a bunch of other things in this collection: some better press plates, some dies, some stamps, a hot or a wax seal. So you got to check it out. I'll have it linked for you in the description box below so you can check out all the things. So now we are moving on to card number 1. I am using that watercolor resist paper. I'm using Distress Oxide ink in Uncharted Mariner. My inspiration for the colors on card number 1 definitely came from those embellishments, those gems. So I decided that would be where I would start. Sometimes you just need one little thing that kind of sparks your interest and build from that. And so I really love the colors in those gems and try to replicate it on this card. So after blending that ink on with my Blending Buddy brush, I'm going to buff off any ink that is still sitting on top of the butterflies and their splatter in the pattern, which makes me so happy. You can see I kind of did an ombre effect where it fades out to white in that bottom right corner, but I still thought it would be cool to add more splatter. So I brought out my distress sprayer, I spritzed it with some water, and then that gave me some areas that were like really light blue, and I just love that look. Plus I did spray over the excess ink that got on my glass mat and was able to then use that and pick it up and splatter it. So I have some blue splatter. So I've got white, I've got light blue, I've got dark blue. It's gorgeous. I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I brought in this Gerber Daisy die set. Now there is a video tutorial by the designer of this die set on the Spellbinders website. I just really wanted to add like a 3D flower to my card, so I brought this out, die cut it from some of those colors in the gems, and I am now just adding color to that with my Copic marker to give it a little bit more of a realistic look. I like the addition of shadowing on things, so I am doing that. I die cut all the flower pieces from the same exact color and then just used a darker marker on the center than I did on the flowers themselves and completely covered it. So that was the best way I could come up with to kind of alter these. Now I know a Gerber daisy can be lots of different colors, but I love that it's a die and I can die cut it from any color I want and make it anything I want. So this might not be 100% realistic. I get it. Then I brought in some tools that are like stylus tools, so you can make rounded, you know, you can take it and round out your die cuts and give them more dimension and bring them to life. And I am doing a lot of the techniques that are in the video for this. It's found right on the page where you can purchase this. If you scroll through the photos, there's like a demonstration on how to do the die cuts, because you might get these dies and think, what do I do with this? You know, so it can be a little confusing if you, you know, if you need that kind of thing. Like a video tutorial is always very helpful. That's probably why you're watching this right now. All right, so next I am doing the leaves. You can see I kind of scored lines on the leaves, and then I turned them over and did a little of that burnishing tool on the back. There's like official names for all of these things, but I'm just a very amateur flower builder, but I know this is like a huge thing. I just think they're gorgeous. I love a Gerber daisy, so I totally had to incorporate this, but maybe you're really into this flower shaping thing. Oh man, it is really cool. And you can do a lot of 3D or home decor projects with these. And I like doing those on occasion too, besides just cards. So I think these are great sets. There's a bunch of them at Spellbinders. If you have a favorite flower, you should look it up. There might be a die set for it. All right, so now we have the teeny tiny centerpieces. I believe there's 16 that the die creates with one pass of the die, and you just layer those up in the center. I didn't actually end up using all of them, but in the video tutorial, she totally did, all of them. So go for it. That's what I say. See what you can do. I did kind of poke them in the center with my tiniest tool there, and then that helps them kind of cup up on the edges and makes for a great flower center for this Gerber daisy. I mean, look at that. It is so gorgeous. The other thing that I like is right on the die, it tells you how many to cut of that one plate, you know, unless it's one. And that is really helpful because this one used 2 of the largest flower, 2 of the smaller flower, 3 of each of the center pieces, and then 1 of that, the part I use that's brown. All right, so now I'm going to bring back that background and add my Gerber daisy and the leaves to the top corner of the card. I just thought it was a really pretty contrast with the blue in the background, which could, you know, maybe be a sky. Now, this is not necessarily a scene. It's just, you know, I'm putting down the elements that I like. So now I am altering my ephemera. This one I am adding some of the sparkle glaze that came out from Ranger in their new holiday release from Tim Holtz. And this one is like shiny and it has flecks of glitter suspended in it, but it's not full of glitter. So I thought it would be really cool to just spread over the top of my sentiment. I'm letting that dry, figuring out where I want my chipboard butterfly to go. Once I figured that out, I took a pen and made a little flight trail for my butterfly. I feel like I probably could have made the dots a little bigger. It kind of blends in with the splatter, but I just went for it, just left it. It's totally fine. And then once my Grateful was starting to dry, I felt like, oh my gosh, I cannot leave the butterfly out. It totally needs some sparkle on it too. So I very carefully, because it was already stuck down, went ahead and added some of that sparkle paste to the butterfly. While I'm letting everything else dry, I brought in some of those gems, and they're so gorgeous. This is the only card I end up using them on. Now, I don't know if you saw that, but one of my gems flew when I tried to grab it with my little tweezers here, and that happened again. So I decided that's not the right tool to use. I did end up finding both of them and bringing them back in, but I like a little pokey tool where you can kind of get under the adhesive on the back of your gem and scoot it off, and then you can use it to figure out where you want to place it and stick it down. So a pokey tool works really good for that. There's my lost ones. Found them, stuck them down. Now that my Grateful is dry, I removed that hair that stuck to it. Ew. And then popped it up. I love popping up my ephemera pieces. It just gives them a little bit more life. So there we go. That is card number 1. The other thing that is fabulous about ephemera, because you get so much, you can use it to add something to the inside of your card as well. So I picked a coordinating butterfly. I want it to look like it was flying in. And then there's some sentiments in there as well. So I added full of thanks on the outside, which totally goes with grateful, right? So this is my card number 1. I think it's so pretty with that 3D flower. It just helps bring the ephemera pieces to life. So on that one, we added glaze over the top. And now we're going to move on to card number 2. I'm going to use my ephemera pieces to create a background. So I took all of these pieces that are like white with gold printed images. They are like they're hot foiled. They shine. And I'm going to arrange them on my card front piece, glue them down to create a background. So I love doing this with ephemera pieces. I've done it lots of times. I think it's a great way to use them. You get so many pieces, and almost always any ephemera pack I've ever got, there's usually at least 2 of each image. So I did forget to get the second leaf, that larger leaf there. And I have a corner that has nothing in it. But what I did is take some of the pieces that I cut away and glue them down to fill in that corner. It's another great way to use your pieces and not waste them. So there we have our background, and now we're going to do a little technique. We're going to emboss over the top, which I love embossing over the top of my ephemera pieces. This is a little bit different way to do that, but think about pressing an ephemera piece into your Versamark pad or clear embossing ink and embossing with clear powder over the top and making it shiny. But this time I'm using Distress glaze, embossing glaze. So this is going to be a little bit translucent where you can see through, but it is going to lay down that color of the Uncharted Mariner. I wanted this to kind of look like a brush stroke and not just a square of my stamp pad. And so I just drug through it a little scraggly brush like so, light-handedly. I've got some of the powder that's on there almost like splatter, and I'm loving it. I'm keeping it. So now it's just time to emboss, and that is going to melt that powder. It's going to be shiny, and so you want to double check it like I did there and make sure you've got it all melted, and then heat it again if you need to. I took another of the ephemera pieces, mounted it onto a square piece of yellow cardstock, popped it up, and then I'm going to add some more ephemera around that sentiment. So there's another fun way to do your ephemera pieces is to create a background, do a technique over the top. You could totally color those in as well. And then I added that to my A2 card base. And then for the inside, I have another sunflower that says, "You are my sunshine." So it kind of repeats the colors from the outside on the inside. And you've got the sentiments that kind of go together too. So I love it. That is card number 2. Quick and easy, right? With a fun technique. You got to let me know what you think of this one. I'm dying to know. In the comments below, chat with me. All right, let's move on to card number 3. I'm going to take a bunch of ephemera pieces this time and group them together. That's another way to kind of elevate it. But first, I needed a background. So we're going to alter this piece of vellum by adding a little bit of blue. I first started out with just the ink that was on my Blending Buddy brush to see if I liked it, but I decided no, I need to go darker. So I went ahead, re-inked my brush with that Uncharted Mariner, and now I'm just blending that onto the back, and oh, it's so good, fading out to nothing, where I don't have any ink blending on the back of this vellum. Oh my gosh, so gorgeous. So to glue this down, I put down some glue and kind of spread it out with my finger. And then I'm adding this to a mini slimline card base. So the paper for the card base was 6 by 6. I scored it at 3 inches. Then up at the top where there was no ink, I went ahead and added some adhesive to my card base and stuck the top down. Now I'm bringing in all those ephemera pieces. I just went through everything and looked at them and kind of thought what would go together. And then I started laying them out and piecing them together to create almost like a floral arrangement. I'm really good at flower arranging when it comes to paper. Maybe not actual flowers. Now I'm taking a piece of press and seal wrap. Now that I have everything where I want it, I can pick it up, flip it over, add some adhesive, and stick it back down. I don't have to reassemble everything. And there's a lot of places where things are overlapped. They're not going to get glue right now. But once I stick it down, there are a couple spots that only got like a dot of glue. I will go back to those, lift them up, and put glue underneath. But this technique is so awesome. I'm not the original I did not come up with this original idea. I believe Jennifer McGuire did. But it's so handy. If you have not tried it before, you definitely should. It's really useful. All right, so I just have a little bit hanging off. I'll trim that off with my scissors so it's nice and flush with the edge of the card. And there we go. Look at that, a little arrangement. But I'm going to go back and alter this even more because I felt like I wanted the pieces to be just a little bit more vibrant than they already are. So after sticking my sentiment on the inside, I brought in my colored pencils. Now, these particular pieces of ephemera are on a very lightweight cardstock that has a tooth to it. It's not shiny, you know what I mean? So it has a little tooth to it so you can actually get in there and color. So you can see I'm brightening up the pumpkin. I had so much fun doing this. I actually went in ahead and brightened up everything with a coordinating color that was maybe a little bit brighter than the color that was there. And it really helped the whole floral arrangement there to pop off of that background even more. And so I was really happy I did it. I think the colored pencils are a nice, subtle way to do this. You know, if you could come in with like a marker and try to add something, but it might be a little bit too much, where this you could really kind of blend it in with what was already there. So I did that. I did all the colors and it was just a really relaxing time and I enjoyed it. So if you enjoy it, do it. If not, this card would look totally fine without adding the colored pencils. You don't have to do that at all, right? Do what makes you happy. Have fun making your card. That's what this is all about, right? Totally. Okay, so once I had the color everywhere that I wanted it, another thing I like to do with stamped images is to use a white gel pen to add a highlight. So I decided to add just a touch of highlight here and there on all the things on this card and really, you know, give it a little bit more interest. And I thought that was a great way to elevate these pieces, and I love how it turned out. So pretty. All right, you could add some gems there, but the card was already so flat, I thought it was fine without. Okay, let's move on to the last card, card number 4. I'm bringing in the stencil, and I'm going to make it my own flower. It's not going to be a sunflower. It's going to be blue, and I love it. All right, so I am doing Uncharted Mariner because that's the color I had out. So I decided to do the base layer, the first layer, with no additional ink. And then the second layer, I'll go ahead and ink up my brush, and it'll make that layer even darker. And this is just going to be, the petals are kind of side by side when you do these first 2 layers. So check it out. Love it. And then we're going to do the really fine detail of these flowers. It makes a little line down the center of each petal. So I needed to come in with something darker, and I chose Prize Ribbon to do that. I inked up my brush really well, and then I can just go over those, and it's going to be darker and sit on top because it's oxide, so it worked out really good. I think these flowers are so pretty. I love them. I also love stenciling. I think it's really fun. It's, you know, I don't know. I think it's the reveal, you know, you take the stencil off and you see, oh my word, I did that just by running a brush over this stencil. So again, I brought out my green Blending Buddy brush, and I just used whatever ink was already on there. I hadn't used it yet in this video, but I knew it was green. So I cleaned off my brush right there on my paper. For the second layer of the leaves, I brought in a smaller blending brush because it's a really small area, and I used Rustic Wilderness over the top, and it worked out really good. Also, I didn't want to get the center of the flowers. You see the center of the flowers is on the same stencil. So I brought in some gathered twigs for the center, and actually I didn't at first add any ink, but it was too light. So I tapped on a little bit of ink, and this time I thought, oh, I'm just going to kind of tap it down. So it will almost give me a two-toned effect where some of the area of the center was lighter and some was darker. Ooh, I loved it. All right, for the last layer, I have ground espresso I'm adding, and that's going to give you all the little details of the center of the flower. And there it is. So cool. All right, so I trimmed down my paper, and then I'm going to cut around like 3/4 of this image, and I'm going to leave the flat piece at the bottom left corner, and I'm going to use that to kind of create the layout for my card. It's going to go in the bottom right corner of my card. All right, so we're coming back to the vellum that has the printed gold leaves on it. I cut this down to A2 size. It's actually 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I added some of that Uncharted Mariner to the corner and faded it out to nothing. And this time I'm going to put the glue on my card base and adhesive, because when I did it before, it kind of transferred some of the ink onto my finger and like lifted it off the vellum, and I didn't want that to happen this time. So adding it to the card base was much better. All right, here you can see my cut out flowers. So very cool. I'll add that to that bottom corner, and then we're going to add an ephemera piece in the form of that sticker that is chipboard, and it says grateful. And then I had to use these gorgeous butterflies. So very pretty. Now this one didn't have very much color to it. It was almost a really light gray. And so I got to thinking about that while I added these gold centers. I love using the ephemera to accent something you've already made, like the center of these flowers. I added another ephemera butterfly to the inside of the card, and that's when I decided to get brave, even though I'd stuck the butterfly down already, and add a little bit of blue to the center of the butterfly, just a little bit of shading. You know, kind of like I did with my flower, my Gerber daisy. Added a little bit of shading, and I felt like this just kind of brought a little bit more dimension to this particular butterfly. There's the other ones on there are, there is like a coral colored butterfly, and it has already a lot of that shading in it. And some of the other ones are darker, so you might not need this, but I just thought with this butterfly, adding a little bit of alcohol marker would color right onto this kind of acetate surface. Was so good. Okay, so there's all 4 of my cards. I think playing with a collection of items that work together is so much fun. It helps like boost my creativity. Having it all out, it just inspires one card after the next. So I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Maybe you picked up a couple fun things to try when you are doing card making yourself. And I will see you all again very soon on the next video. Thanks for stopping by. Happy stamping.